Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Chasing Easy, where life is easy. It's the choices we make that are hard. And this really, again, it's all about authenticity. My guests that come on here have no idea what questions I'm going to ask. Heck, I don't even know what questions I'm going to ask. So you can't really get more real than that. But each one of my guests have had a story that I know has spoken into the lives of you, the listeners. And I know that especially for my guest tonight, that Kim is really going to speak into somebody who needs to hear her story and what she has lived through and how she has come off onto the other side. And I just ask that you would season what you're hearing with grace and know that this is going to be a hard topic to cover, but it's one that is extremely relevant, especially for the things that our kids are going through today and adults. So please help me welcome Kim to the episode. Kim, I'm so glad that you decided to jump on here and to allow yourself to be vulnerable to an audience that you will probably never meet, never know, which might in some ways make it easier for you. But thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And for those of you that can't see, she's wearing a really beautiful color blue Under Armour hoodie. I really like that color. It's one of my favorites. So I met Kim. I think it's important to just step back a second. I haven't known Kim for very long at all. And I met her at Freedom Church in the lobby, and she had shared a story with me in the lobby at church that really piqued my interest and told me how brave and strong of a woman she is. And you're absolutely going to come to the same conclusion. So do you remember what you shared with me in the lobby at Freedom Church?
I kind of do. I remember being wet because I was water baptized that morning, or within the last half hour before I met you. And I just came out of the bathroom and I remember getting coffee and freezing. And I just started talking to you across because I was so proud of myself for going, and doing what I've been wanting to do for a long time. I knew I was ready. And you were just there. And I remember, I believe I said, good morning. And then you just start like, congratulations, or, I'm happy that you did that. I don't know what you said. And then I just started to talk to you about like what I kind of was going through. I went through a really difficult separation, and I found God, and I'm letting him kind of take my wheel and guide me in the direction I need to go into. And I did share with you that I tried to commit suicide in the early part of my separation. And how far I've come and how proud I was of myself. And in that moment, which was only just a few minutes, I just thought to myself, I can't believe I shared that information with a stranger, just immediately, like it was just supposed to happen. So something that I've been holding deep within myself. And I just felt like that day, I just wanted to let it out,
Yes.
And kind of feel free of it.
Well, I was super proud of you too. And I think probably the question that sparked or triggered you sharing so deeply with me is I asked you what led you to the decision to get baptized. Mm-hmm. And so you started sharing with me your story, and I didn't immediately say, oh my gosh, you got to get on my podcast. And, that would not have been good timing. But the more I thought about it, I thought you are going to be able to speak into the lives of women that are listening to this podcast in a way that I will never be able to speak into them. And so let's back up and let's talk about the marriage. So you were married and you were happily married? Yes?
Yeah. So I was married 23 years when we separated in 2020. And we just celebrated our 23rd anniversary, actually, like 2 weeks before my husband said he wanted to separate. and I had
Did
2
you
kids.
have, okay, did you have any idea that he was going to ask for a separation? So you're married for 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 weeks after you celebrate your 23rd year anniversary, he says he wants to separate.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you receive that?
Well, leading up to it, and I say that I felt like I was blinded by it. I mean, and if we can be as open and blunt as possible on here,
Of course.
I mean,
Yes.
I was so blinded by it that I was late for work that morning because we had sex. Like, I mean, it was literally like a smack at me that night when I got off of work that he wanted to talk, and for a couple of weeks before that day, in hindsight now, I do recognize, I realize there was some red flags that I wasn't really paying attention to. Just like
That's-
not really communicating,
Okay.
those types of things, which were leading into like little petty arguments,
Mhm.
nothing major, but not enough to come off that way and just say you feel like you want to separate.
Sure. Because couples, let's face it, we all argue, we all have those moments where we don't like each other very much. So that wouldn't have really probably struck you as
Yeah.
being even strange then, right?
Mm-mm. No, in fact, we were in such a good place in our marriage. Finally, financially, we were in the house that we wanted. Our kids were grown. I mean, I feel like I just didn't see it coming. We've been through so many rough patches in our marriage that the petty arguments that we were having was not enough to trigger this to happen for me.
Yeah. So what do you think was different about this time than the other rough times maybe that you went through where you still didn't quite see it as what it really was? Because a lot of
Mhm.
times we'll go into denial and think this is just a phase, or he doesn't know what he's doing,
Yeah.
right? What
Mhm.
was different about this time? What did you sense?
Um, what did I sense? So I, I don't think I have an answer to that because I don't feel like I saw any real signs other than us being somewhat distant from each other. But that too was just us like doing our own thing. We still came together at night, still had conversations, still ate dinner, went to bed. It just wasn't that interactive, fun, goofy stuff for the last couple weeks that we were used to being. We were best friends. And I did feel like we were losing that because we weren't really communicating. And
Mhm.
that would lead me to argue with him. So,
Mhm.
which again, putting that blame on yourself and wondering why and how all this even came about or happened. Why is this happening to me? I thought about that for a very long time and put a lot of blame on myself for that. Like maybe I could
Okay.
have done something differently.
So I'm going to park there for a second
Hmm.
because I know that there are probably many that are listening to this podcast right now that are blaming themselves for somebody else's actions.
Hmm.
And that's, excuse me, that's what we do. Almost as women and nurturers, we just think that when something doesn't go the way that it should, we want to hold the blame.
Hmm.
So how did you deal with that? Oh, you said you were blaming yourself. You didn't understand it. Let's talk about that for a minute. What were the thoughts that were going through your mind? How did you separate? And then I want you to sort of walk us down the dark path of wanting to take your own life.
Yeah. So when and I remember it like it's like it was yesterday, he wanted to sit down on the couch and have a conversation. And he's like, I really can't explain why, and he was shaking and kind of trembling. And he's like, I feel like I want to be by myself for a while. And I was like, what do you mean by yourself for a while? Go to the gym, because him and his brother own a gym. So I'm like, go to the gym then. He's like, no, you don't understand. I think that we shouldn't be together for a while. And I'm going to tell you, I lost it. I started crying. I thought what is happening? We were just together this morning, and I just was crying, like, what did I do wrong? And he's like, nothing that you did wrong. And he kept saying that, nothing that you did wrong. I need to figure myself out. And I had a really hard time. I sat there and I cried all night. I just cried. And he already had a bag packed. And I didn't even know that. I didn't know that until months later, but it was in his car. So he already had that. So he said, I'm going to leave. And he was crying and he's like, I got clothes at the gym because they have the gym and do showers and stuff. He's like, I still have clothes there at the gym. I'm going to stay at my brother's for a couple nights. Now, his brother lives 2 doors down from me. We live on the same street. So
Oh,
he said he was,
goodness.
yeah. So he said he was going to stay with his brother for a couple nights and just give us some space. And my older son was there at the house. I mean, my younger son was there at the house at the time. He was a senior in high school. So my older son was away in college.
Mhm.
Anyway, and he just left for college because it was in August and he just left for college. So my younger one was at the house, like, what's going on? He left. I was almost in panic mode. Like, what's happening in my life? I'll give him a day. I cried myself out. I slept all day, the entire weekend actually. And I was texting him, calling him. He wasn't coming home. Pretty much harassing him to come home. And then I think it was either Tuesday or Wednesday. Now that happened on a Friday. Tuesday or Wednesday, he came in the middle of the day. I had taken off of work. I was an absolute mess. And
Sure.
he came in and he said, I really think that this should be long term. And I think that I'm going to move in with my brother for a while. And I lost it. Like I felt like my whole life was just ending.
I'm
I
so
didn't know what
sorry.
to do. Like I didn't know what to do. So I went up and he went and he got clothes and he left and went 2 doors down and his truck is outside. That night I went over and it was in August, so it was hot. And I went over and I sat on my brother-in-law's steps and I fell asleep there. And I
Mm.
just laid there and I just was just so sad. I remember that. So that, like it was yesterday. And he
Mm.
just didn't want to talk. And the more that I wanted him to come home, the more angry he was getting with me. Like I wasn't giving him his space.
Yeah.
And so then name calling came in and I was already putting pressure on myself for what did I do wrong? And my son, I was watching him watch me suffer, cry, and he was telling me to just, stop. And I wanted him to know that his dad wasn't any good. And I was just a mess. And I felt like I ruined my kid's life and ruined my life. And I just didn't do the right job by being a good wife. So I just thought, well, what am I even doing here?
Mm.
And then
Okay.
a couple weeks did go by. I lost a lot of weight in a couple weeks. I got down to 105 pounds. I was
Oh
really
my
sick.
goodness.
And
Let me ask you something real quick, Kim. Did you
yeah,
have any support as you were going through this trauma?
I did have support from a couple girlfriends, a couple friends that just, I'm telling you, God works in the most mysterious way, because one person that I didn't even realize was put in my life for this reason stopped by my house because she had my address from her daughter, because my son hung out with her daughter over the weekend and he had something of hers and she needed it back. It was I don't know, I don't know. But she came in and I knew
Mhm.
her from wrestling program at the high school, the mom.
Right.
And she was like, are you okay? And I lost it. I
Mm.
lost it. And she picked me up. She packed me clothes. She made me come to her house. She didn't even know me, you know? And
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah, and I stayed with her for a couple days. And then she was afraid to let me go home. She travels for work. So my mom and my brothers and stuff weren't as supportive as I would have hoped they would have been at the time.
Mhm.
They wanted to kind of just stay out of it. They didn't want to get in the middle of it, and they didn't know how to deal with it. So they thought the best thing was to give me space. And they didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah. So I think what you said there, Kim, is probably where maybe even I would be, is when you see somebody who is suffering so much, it's really hard to know what to do for that person because
Yeah.
you don't know. What I have learned, and you can tell me if this is a good decision or not, but what I have learned through the years, when somebody is mourning, and you were mourning the loss of a relationship, when somebody is mourning or hurting in that way, just being present. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to even do anything, but just to be present in case they want to talk. If they just want your shoulder, I have learned that just being present and not having any expectations has really helped, at least the people that I have been around
Yeah.
who were struggling.
I do wish that would have happened, that they just would have been present, because it was very, very lonely. And they knew that he left me, but they didn't know what I was going through. They felt like with my personality that I just wanted to be by myself and that he was going to come back, you know? And it was the complete opposite of all of that. So
Sure.
to be present would have been what I needed. I feel like, and maybe I would have not made any attempt, to hurt myself.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's what
Did
happened
you
with that.
ask, and I'm going to put this out there too, because for those of you that are in the listening audience, if you are going through a time of mourning and you're feeling like you not being present or you being here on earth is the solution, I want you to hear my heart on this. There is somebody out there who wants to be with you, wants you to be able to lean on them, but they don't know what you need. So ask for the help that you need to help you through. That's where most of us fall short, is we won't ask for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say would have been the result? Because it sounds like you probably didn't want to ask for the help because you were hurting so badly. What do you think would have happened if you would have asked for help?
Um, I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. I don't know, because in my family, there's not a whole lot of positivity, you know.
Okay.
So I don't even know, like, if I feel like it was probably best that my family didn't get involved,
Okay.
because when it was time, and this was a part of my problem too, and I've worked through this and we're fine now, but one of my mother's first questions was, "Kim, what did you do?" You know, and
Mm,
I wouldn't have needed that at that time, and when she was ready to talk with me, and my brother too, and that was presented to me, it was presented to me after I had already been through a few things, and so I don't really know if they would have helped me by being
yeah.
present in my
Yeah.
life. But the people that were present in my life are still in my life, and they still expect nothing from me, and they're still in my corner, you know.
That's beautiful.
So
That's
I'm very
beautiful.
blessed to have the few friends that I do have that have walked me through this.
Yeah. Now I know this next question is going to be a hard one to answer. I think you've already given us some context, but I want to know what you were thinking that led you to wanting to harm yourself because it would have been easier.
Hmm.
Can you tell me about the thoughts that you were having? Because there's somebody out there right now that might be having those exact thoughts. That are
Yes.
thinking the exact same thing, that everybody will be better off if I'm gone.
Yes. I remember very specifically what I was going through when I wanted to just go. I remember calling him and him yelling at me on the phone, telling me that he didn't want me anymore. And me telling him that he was my best friend and that he said that he was going to love me forever and be there for me. And that I told him that we had two boys, that we were failing, by going through this. And he was telling me that it was all my fault and that I just was never happy. And that I took him for granted, which isn't true, but he was just trying to make it, I guess, sound better for himself at the time.
He was justifying, because earlier
Yeah,
he said that it wasn't you, it wasn't you, it wasn't
exactly.
you. And then he turned about face. And now in your moment of weakness, he's putting it on you.
Right. Yes. And I told him that this whole thing was gonna kill me. And he was like, okay. And he just didn't take me seriously. So that's when I just said, you're gonna take me seriously.
Mm.
So I went downstairs and I had an unopened bottle of rum and I haven't eaten days. This was after this was actually before that lady came to my home, Amy. So
Okay.
this was like the second weekend. She didn't know anything was going on, but my son was not coming home. He was staying at friends' houses and, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I went downstairs, I grabbed the whole bottle of rum and I grabbed all of the pills that were up in there. And I just took the bottle of rum upstairs and I started to drink it. And I was drinking it and drinking it, drinking it. And in between, I was taking the pills. And then I was just laying in the bed and drinking it. And my friend Rachel was trying to come over and had the doors locked. And I was throwing up upstairs. And she got in the window because Jacob said that I wasn't answering my phone. Jacob's my younger son. And I
Okay.
wasn't answering my phone, or when he tried the bottom lock was locked. And we have a keypad and a bottom lock. And we were the only ones that really had the bottom lock. We never locked the bottom lock. We always did the keypad. And he was scared because the keypad wasn't working and the bottom lock was locked. So Rachel, my childhood friend, broke a window, came into the window, cut herself badly, came upstairs, and I was throwing up everywhere. And they had to take me to the hospital and pump my stomach. So that was what had happened there.
So I I can't sit here and pretend to say I know how you feel, because that would be a bold-faced lie. I know how it feels to be completely obliterated by somebody else, thinking that they loved me, and then come to find out they really didn't, and they were just playing me like a puppet. And I'm not saying that that's what happened here towards the end. It's what it sounded like he was doing. But in the moment of your greatest need, your son came through, because he could have ignored that you weren't answering. He could have ignored that the bottom lock was locked, that you never locked, and not done anything.
Yeah.
We might not be having this conversation today. But he chose to act. And so whoever is listening, when you realize that something is off with somebody and they're not responding, please, please, please do your part and reach out and try to get help over to wherever that person is, because you don't know what's going on. And then for Rachel to come over there and to be brave enough herself just to break a window out, knowing that everything could have been fine, but it didn't seem fine, for her to take that bold action and come in and really save you.
Yeah, she really did.
I
She
mean,
really did.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful representation of how the Lord was rescuing you even before you knew him.
Right. You're
True.
absolutely right. And I truly believe in that. I really do.
Yep.
I don't believe I would be here right now, you know.
Oh,
Um,
he's not done with you, girl.
no, he's not, and he
Mm,
wasn't, and he wasn't
not at
because
all.
it wasn't, I didn't only have one attempt, I had two. And the second one was even worse. So that
Okay.
happened.
Let's talk about that, because if you attempted once and there was intervention, right? It was intercepted, so it was not successful. Was there something that happened between that second weekend and your second attempt?
Yeah. So
Okay.
what happened was they kept me in the hospital for 9 days for evaluation, mental evaluation, and all that stuff, and health evaluation because I had taken so much stuff. And at that point, I was like 105 pounds, so it was bad. And I they said that I had to be released under
Here.
someone to watch
Hmm.
me. And Rachel was with me the entire time. She didn't leave. She was working from the hospital. She wound up signing everything for me to come out when it was time and they felt like I was needed to go home. They're not going to keep you forever. And I did my work. I did. I really had to work hard in there for those few days to get myself in a place where I was able to go back home.
Hmm.
And she stayed with me for a month. Rachel did, for a month. So at
Hats
this
off
point,
to Amy in the beginning, and Rachel, you are, my goodness,
yeah,
what a beautiful friend you are.
yes, I'm very blessed, very.
Mm.
So that was now hitting into the holidays. So that happened in September, around my birthday, actually. I think the day after my birthday, right before my son's birthday. Um,
Oh, happy birthdays, right? Shoo.
which was really hard because Justin won't even celebrate his birthday now. He's like, I don't even like that month. So, um, anyway,
I'm so sorry.
so she stayed with me and she was with me all the way through like Halloween. And I remember like being right after Halloween. Then she was like, okay, well, I'm going to start going back home. She has 4 kids and she's working from my house and she's taught, she's been the best friend,
Mm.
making me go with her if she had to go somewhere. So I had my 2 dogs and I have 2 boxers and they were scared like all the time. When all this was going on. So Thanksgiving
Mm.
comes and both of my kids were down at my brother-in-law's 2 doors down. And they had Thanksgiving down there and they brought me up food and stuff. And I was in such a dark place all over again. Like the holidays are here and I felt like my whole world was shutting down. Work wasn't working out because they were like not being understanding. I had plenty of medical leave, but it was just messy. And
Mm.
at that time, after my son left for break for Thanksgiving break and went back to school, I was like, I just want to leave this earth. I felt like everything was crashing down. I felt like I was losing everything. And in the same time, like 2 days after Thanksgiving, Jamie came over with separation papers that he wanted to go over with me, like what he wanted and what he expected from me, and that he wanted me to move, and that he was going to give me until like the first of the year, or I was going to have to figure out how to pay the bills. It was just awful. So I said, if I just wanted us to be together and let's work it out. And he said, well, if you move and we'll see how things go, I need space. So I
Mm.
signed these separation papers. but I thought we were going to get back together.
Sure.
Either
You were
that
holding out
or
for
I was
hope.
going to, either that or my life was over. Like it was the only thread I was holding on to because I don't have any family. Like his family was my family
Mm.
and they were all on his side, you know? And like I felt like everybody was against me just because of what he wanted. And
So you were feeling very isolated, very
very,
alone.
very isolated. So
Mm.
after he left and I signed those papers, and it was like 3 days after Thanksgiving, um, I wrote my kids a letter and I thought I just wanted to leave this earth because I didn't know what to do.
Mm.
And at this point, I only had my dogs there. My son was staying at his friend's house because he's back in he's in high school and he could walk from there where I was dropping him off at school every day. So that was not happening. So
Right.
he was staying with them so he could walk to school and just kind of have some normalcy. And I went upstairs and in our bedroom we have one of those like little crawl space things, like a small little latch, and you could go up and it's just enough to like put like little boxes up there. And
Mm-hmm.
me and Jamie would we had fixed it where we sealed it to the ceiling. That way it couldn't come down. We weren't using it. But it would open sometimes and it would like cool air. So we sealed it. Anyway, there were like latches around that. So what I did was I took um two of his belts and I like tried to attach him with a dog leash. And I thought, well, I will just like end it right here. And I tried to like put myself up there and I did. And I don't know how this even happened because I could have sworn I shut and locked that bedroom door. I could have sworn I did. And I don't know how this happened, but both of my dogs wound up being in there in that closet. We had a big walk-in closet, but they both came in there and they were looking at me. And I just shut my eyes and I dropped it. And then the whole thing just dropped with me. The
You were
whole
trying to
thing.
hang yourself.
Yeah. The whole thing that he sealed in just fell. So it didn't work. But the dog started like licking my face and, you know, and I was just like, what am I doing?
So first of all, I want you to catch your breath for a minute because everything you're sharing is just so incredibly vulnerable. And
It's
I
really
know,
hard to talk about sometimes, but I know that everything that I've been through, which has been so painful, it's been so, so painful that I know that if I can get through it, someone else can. I know it. I know somebody else may have maybe going through this with who they thought was their best friend for 20 some years and may feel alone. And I know that maybe my purpose right now is just to help someone else. So
yes. So your brevity, I just applaud it. Your vulnerability. And I also truly believe that the more that you openly discuss what you have been through, not only is there going to be somebody waiting on the other side that you're going to bless through it, that you're going to help through it, but there is healing for you in it as well. Because our enemy wants us to hold everything in
yeah,
because that's what will destroy us. And we will take it to the grave with us if we don't learn to talk about it and release it and get healing from it.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I firmly believe that you going through this right now and talking about it, as painful as it is, you will eventually come to a time when you're sharing it and you're still going to feel some of the emotions that you're feeling tonight, but you are going to be so strong and so courageous and healed because you took the step to share it instead of hiding it.
Yeah.
We're going to be a bold light on a hill for people that, again, you may never, ever know, and you won't truly ever know who you have impacted from your story until you see them in heaven.
Yeah.
So let's, as hard of as all of that was, the one thing that I want to point out to anybody who is listening is when we tether our identity to people, and if that person or if that people group disappoints us or starts treating us differently, or they're cold towards us and it sets us over the edge, when we're tethered to people, they will always disappoint us. And you've heard me say it, it's people, possessions, and position. If that's where we're getting our identity from, then we're in a world of trouble, people, because those things are always going to be moving targets. They're always going to change, and they will always disappoint. So rebuilding yourself now from the ground up, where would you say you are now from having gone through this? Where would you say you are now as far as thoughts about yourself?
Well, I did move out December 16th, 2020. And I moved into a double wide trailer, which I redid all on my own with a friend of mine and her kids, her small kids. We learned a lot of projects together.
Excellent.
And over the past, couple years that I've been on my own now, I feel like I've learned a lot about myself, a lot of things that I didn't know that I could do without him, that I was scared to do on my own, maybe without him, when we were married. Even though I was a very, very strong person in our marriage, and I may come across differently on here as if I wasn't, but I worked 2 jobs. I was a teen mom. I always did the best I could as a mother, as a wife. I did everything that I wanted to do to make my husband happy. And that was very disappointing for me, So to know that I did everything that he ever wanted out of a wife, and it wasn't enough. So you have to really be yourself. Or if something like this happens, you can't say I did everything that he wanted me to do like I'm doing right now. I would just hope that, whoever's listening, and if you've changed yourself for someone else, it's not a solution to keep your marriage. It's not a solution to keep your relationship.
Okay. What you just said, Kim, is so incredibly powerful that men or women listening to this, regardless of your age, even though the majority of my audience is 25 to 40 years old, wherever you fall and whoever it is that's listening right now, what she just said is critical. Do not lose yourself and become what you think other people need you to be in their lives. That is dishonoring to yourself. That is disrespectful to yourself. And it certainly is not honoring your creator. Now, I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God. Whoever your creator is, we are not designed to alter who we are for somebody else. And it will not serve you long term. So you really, Kim, in your marriage, you lost your identity.
I did. I absolutely did. Absolutely.
And so in this process of rediscovering who you are, and that you can do hard things, and that you are just this really cool chick who can remodel homes now. I mean, what is the hope that you look for your future?
I have set some goals that I haven't done since I've been, away from him. I haven't really been allowed myself to mentally get there where I set like long-term goals for myself. And I'm starting to do that. So that to me is a big accomplishment for, just for myself. I've always wanted to look into doing going into the airline industry. And I have a second interview doing that. And that was something that wasn't supported. That was something I always wanted to do when I got out of school. And when I got out of high school, I wanted to do it. And I didn't do it at that time. And then when I got married, he was like, no, not if we're going to have kids. You can't go traveling. And, and you just redo your life. And it wasn't his fault, but it was something that we did together. But the support, it's something that I can do now and no one can tell me not to do it,
That's right.
And so I'm looking into doing that. And if it
That's
happens,
exciting.
it is exciting. And if it happens, it's great. If it doesn't happen, I'm so proud of myself for going through the interviews. I made it through the
Yes.
second interview. And if I get chosen, then, I'll be off to Georgia. I'll be selling this place and going off to Georgia, for 6 months for training. So, I mean, if it, God willing, I mean, if it happens, then it was meant to happen. If it wasn't, it was meant for me to experience the interviews. That's how I want to
Oh, I
look
like
at
what
it.
you just said there.
Mhm.
Even if it doesn't end up that you land the job, just the experience of going
Yes.
through the interviews was worth it. So
Right.
that's fantastic. That's looking at it as a gift, an
Mhm.
opportunity, not tethered to the outcome.
Right.
So
Right.
that's very good.
Mhm.
Very
And I
good.
have the encouragement of my kids, they have, they're both like, Mom, I want you to do everything you want to do, and so I'm excited. I mean, I've done some things that I would have never done, in while I was with him, just because you change yourself in your marriage. And honestly, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I just thought that I was doing things for that would make me happy if I made him happy, So
Right.
there was no blame there to him. Those were choices that I made. And I think that it's really important. And I tell my friends that I see that are young and
Mhm.
have like rocky relationships. It's so important to communicate. I thought that we communicated really well, but I do like, you figure things out along the way that you wish you would have done differently, which may not have changed the outcome, but in a marriage, if you communicate, it's so important. And you have to have your own identity, you know, you
That's
have to be able
key.
to have guy time. You have to be able to have girl time. You have to
Sure.
be able to separate from your small children and get away for the weekend. Those were all things that we never did. We were up each other's
Nice.
butt for 20 plus years, you know? So,
Yeah. Well, so I want to end with, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like you to share what one of the things is that you would have never have done before that you did,
uh-huh.
and maybe what one of your long-term goals is, if you are at liberty to share that, so that we
Yeah.
can encourage you in those.
hmm So last year, one thing that I did that I thought I would never do is that I went on a 9-day trip with a coworker and her husband and their daughter, who was like 16. She was like my buddy the whole time. She was like my person. And we went to all 9 national parks. So we kind of did like a world trip for 9 days.
Oh,
We
awesome.
went to Washington State, Vermont, Illinois, Iowa. We were all over the place in 9 days. And we took pictures of each other in the different parks, the national parks. And it was the most amazing experience that I ever had in my life.
Good for
Um,
you. Good for
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. So I know that that's something that I would have never done.
No, you wouldn't have allowed
Yeah.
yourself to do it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And then
and I
when,
cut my hair. And it was something that he never wanted me to do. He never like, he's not a short hair like guy. He's like, and please just don't ever cut your hair. I don't care if you ever change the color or whatever. Last year, I cut all my hair off and I love it. I felt like it was
Yes.
sassy and it was me and it was my personality, my goofy personality that I had to find again. So I'm working towards a lot of things that I'm doing now on my own.
Good for you. And it's one day at a time, right?
It
It's
is,
one
because
day at a
it's not
time.
easy. It's not easy, and it doesn't get. I mean, there's weeks where it's hard. It's so hard. I cry myself to sleep sometimes, but you have to find a way to figure out a coping way. Like mine is writing. And like I told you
Mhm.
before, I started writing like things that make me happy and blessings that I have. And it really does. It helps me a lot. So if you need to find an outlet so you don't have to, think like your world is ending and why should you be here? There are reasons why you need to be here. So
Yeah.
everybody has a purpose and you just have to figure out a way to be able to cope, whether it means asking
Healthy
for
way to
someone to
cope.
be with you,
Mhm.
whether it means asking someone to just be there with you and be present, or writing or whatever, reading. You just have to find your outlet.
That's right. That's right. And that's good advice. And then what is maybe one of your long-term goals now that you're looking forward to or working towards?
One of my long-term goals, I definitely want to be more active in my church. So,
Okay.
and I'm working towards, I just joined 2 groups, and a long-term goal is to be able to help others, because I work in the health field, and that was my ultimate thing. I love people.
Mhm.
And if I can make a difference for others, I don't know what route that will be in, whether it be healthcare, yeah, counseling, something. I want to do it within my church. And I just want to
Excellent.
be able to give back.
That's beautiful. That's
Yep.
beautiful. And I think, even though I asked the question of a long-term goal,
Hmm.
I think that you're already making steps doing that. And tonight is one of those, is a huge step in helping people.
Yeah.
So I really want to thank you for that. And I'm going to ask one last question. If there was one thing that you would want to share with the audience, somebody who maybe is struggling with the exact same thing that you struggled with a couple of years ago, what is one quick little thing that you would say to encourage them?
Hmm. Don't be alone. If you're hurting, don't be alone. Go keep yourself busy, do something, put yourself in front of a crowd, that even if you don't know them, go to the gym, go do something. Don't sit and be alone, because you're really hurting yourself by doing that. Find a friend, just reach out, don't be afraid. And that is definitely big advice, because that's something that I wish I would have done differently, which may have helped me in my darker times. So
That's beautiful. And we are meant to live in community. We need other people. I mean, we're not
mhm,
meant to be alone. And even in our society today, where people feel awkward even having a conversation with one another because all we're doing is using our thumbs on our devices to
yeah,
talk to people. When you're in a dark space or when you need help, you have to reach out and actually, I call it kneecap to kneecap. You need to have somebody there in your life, and do not allow pride to get in the way of asking for help. So,
yes.
Kim, that was fantastic advice. I thank you so much for your vulnerability. Again, this was a very raw account of true life. I mean, what can really happen in someone's life? And I thank you again. God bless you. I
Mhm.
can't wait to see what you do with your life that is going to help other people more than what you've already done.
Well, thank you for
God
letting me be a
bless
part of this. I
you. Of
appreciate that.
course. Of course. Thank you for giving it a voice.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, I stopped recording.
Okay. Hold on. Oh, wait.